Welcome back to Crypto Hipster. Today, I want to ask what sounds like a simple question. It's not so simple, right? But my question is this: who owns Bitcoin? Who owns the internet, for that matter? Who owns Linux? Who owns Alcoholics Anonymous? Who owns a family business after three generations? Who owns a community that has existed for decades? Who's the owner of that, right? At first, those seems like completely different questions. Technology, organizations, families, communities. But I don't think they're all different. I don't think they're different at all. They're all asking the same thing. At what point does something stop belonging to the person who created it? As founders, entrepreneurs, and builders, we spend an enormous amount of time thinking about how to create. How do we launch? How do we allocate capital? How do we attract customers? How do we hire? How do we grow? Those are all important questions. But eventually, another question arrives. How does this survive me? How does this question survive the person who created it? That question is much harder. So, our culture celebrates beginnings. We celebrate entrepreneurs. We celebrate inventors. We celebrate visionaries. We celebrate the people who start things. Very few people become famous for maintaining those things. Yet maintenance is where civilization lives. Someone has to maintain bridges, or your car will fall into the river, right? Someone has to preserve libraries. Someone has to keep the family together. Somebody has to continue traditions, no matter how small. Someone has to keep communities healthy long enough after the founder is gone. A tradition that I have maintained since my kids were babies is every year I get them a Hess truck in December, Christmas, every year. It's a little tradition, nothing earth shattering. But who maintains that? And do my kids maintain that for their kids? So creation, you know, creation creates headlines and continuation rarely does. But continuation is where the real work happens. Brick by brick, book by book. I've been thinking about that a lot lately. You know, the less interested I am now as time goes on, and the less interested I am in dramatic moments, in chaos, and drama. I'm becoming more interested in consistency. The person who keeps showing up, the company that quietly survives 20 years, the community that welcomes new people decade after decade. The founder who understands that eventually the organization has to become bigger than his own personality, or their own personality, his or her own personality. Those people rarely trend on social media, but often they build the things that last. So, one lesson recovery taught me is that life is rarely changed by one extraordinary day. Now, people know the date of my last drink, which was January 24, 2002. It's an important date, right? But sobriety wasn't built in one day. It was built the next day and the day after that. And thousands of ordinary days after that. No applause, no headlines, just another day of doing the next right thing. Stewardship often looks like that. Quiet repetition. And the same is true of my podcast, this podcast, right? People might see more than 600 founder interviews. That sounds impressive. But there wasn't one interview by itself that created the archive. There were hundreds of Mondays and Tuesdays, hundreds of conversations, hundreds of editing sessions, hundreds of episodes published one at a time. Stewardship rarely feels dramatic while you're living it. It simply looks like continuing. And one reason why I enjoy interviewing founders is because crypto has become an incredible laboratory for those questions. Every founder eventually encounters the same challenge. What happens if you leave? What happens if you sell your company? What happens if you retire? What happens if someone else takes over? There are plenty of opportunities in the market where current, say, treasury companies might not be doing so well right today. But that doesn't mean that the chain dies. So, what happens if the community wants something different than you imagined? Those aren't signs of failure. Those are signs the system is growing. Now, a decentralized network shouldn't depend forever on one individual, one company, one avenue, one holder of tokens. A healthy company shouldn't require one person to approve every decision forever. Right? A community shouldn't depend, and it shouldn't disappear. A community should not disappear because one leader walks away. If something depends, and if everything depends upon one person forever, then maybe this system never really matured. That's uncomfortable for founders. It's uncomfortable because we naturally identify with what we've built. We say who we built is who we are. We poured years of our lives into it. We sacrificed for it. We worried about it and we defended it. And eventually, though, success begins asking something different of us. Not more control, more trust. So I think that's the transition for ownership to stewardship. Owners ask, how do I stay in control? Stewards ask, how do I prepare this to outlive me? Those are very different questions. One is about protecting yourself. The other is about protecting others. One measures success by influence. The other measures success by continuity. Continuity is not glamorous. It's patient. It's repetitive. It's often invisible. But history is full of systems that survived because someone quietly cared for them after the founder left. Those people deserve more attention than they receive. I recently received a marketing pitch. I wanted something small. They wanted a grand offering, or expensive offering. But the one thing that caught my attention was their statement. We're going to require complete access to your archive. Well, that doesn't fly. The archive was mine when I built it. Now, it's a database of hundreds of conversations that needs to be carefully preserved, not adding more risk to it, but preserving as stewardship and cultivating for the future. The goal of any business is to decisions are to reduce risk, not to add to them. So lately, I've started looking at that. That's not just one area, but all of my work collectively differently. Years ago, I thought I was simply interviewing interesting people, and they are. Most of them are very interesting people. Maybe a few aren't as much, but most people, a lot more interesting. So now I'm preserving a moment in history. 2021 to 2026. The real turning point in a revolutionary moment for the future. These 5 years. How blockchain really gained adoption. How it went through a Web3 revolution. They're a living record. Every founder who sits down on this podcast is leaving behind something more than just an episode. Years from now, someone may want to know what builders were thinking during this period of technological change. What problems did they face? What motivated them? What mistakes did they make? What kept them going? Those conversations become part of an archive. And that realization changes my responsibility. I'm not simply producing content. I'm preserving stories. That's a different mindset. And that mindset is called stewardship. So I'll leave you with one question. If you're building something today, whether it's your company, a protocol, a blockchain, a family, a community, or even your own career, if you stepped away tomorrow, would this continue? If the answer is no, maybe the next phase of building isn't adding more. Maybe it's preparing others so that you can step away. Because every founder eventually leaves. Every CEO retires. Every parent grows older. Every generation will hand something to the rest. Every podcaster transitions from being a podcaster to a preserver, to an author, to a synthesizer of conversations where the evergreen conversation part matters and continues on. The question isn't whether we'll leave. The question is, what condition will we leave it in? And maybe that's the measure of real success. Not simply creating something remarkable, but helping it become strong enough to thrive without you there. Thanks for listening. This is the Crypto Hipster. I'll see you next time.